Good evening and welcome to our Spring Alumni Town Hall. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Colleen Garland, Vice President for Advancement, and I will be your moderator this evening. On campus, we're just 10 days away from commencement and 2 weeks away from welcoming many of you back for our bicentennial reunion, which is shaping up to be the largest alumni gathering in our 200-year history. Tonight, I'm pleased to be joined by President Julie Kornfeld, as well as Provost Jeff Bowman and Celestino Limas, our Vice President for Student Affairs. Also with us is Kimberly Brownsword of the class of 2012, who is your current Alumni Council President. This group of alumni volunteers partner with our division to advance the mission of the college, serve as your alumni representatives, and encourage your continued connection to Kenyon. Kimberly will do the honors of presenting some awards to just a few of our outstanding alumni later in the hour. We know that you're likely aware of the headlines about protests and heightened tensions on campuses around the country related to the war in Gaza. Our community has acted with sensitivity and taken care to express views respectfully. President Kornfeld will provide some updates later this evening after we celebrate a few other events and achievements on campus this semester. We'll of course save time for your questions too, so please send them in the chat to questions at any time throughout the hour so a member of my staff can share them and ensure that we see them. It is now my pleasure to introduce our president, Julie Kornfeld. Julie, when you hosted your first alumni town hall with us in December, you had been at Kenyon for just 2 months. Last month, our entire campus, as well as delegates from more than 70 colleges and universities, came together to celebrate your formal installation as Kenyon's 20th president. Before we get to that incredible and memorable historic event, can you share with us some high points from the spring semester?
Thank you so much, Colleen. It is so nice to be here this evening and to see so many of you. I think I see a little bit more familiarity with faces and names than I did back in December, so it's very nice to be here. As Colleen said, it has been a busy spring. So many wonderful opportunities to get to know many alum and so many wonderful moments on and off the Hill. I'd love to share some of the joys of that with you all, and to also acknowledge what Colleen mentioned. We know many of you are thinking about the unrest on college campuses, and I will address that. But first, I want to show you some highlights from the many activities we've been participating in since I joined in October. There have been, this is a campus, as you all know well, of wonderful moments and traditions. And these events have reminded me time and time again that this is a wonderful community that takes great pride in coming together, celebrating the many accomplishments of our students and our alumni. And it's been really an incredible opportunity for me to get to know so many of our wonderful stakeholders, alumni, students, staff, and faculty. So I'm going to share a couple of highlights with all of you. And we fit in quite a bit of events. So I will start with sharing with you a couple of really fun activities. Many of you maybe remember that back in December, we hosted a Hanukkah celebration at Cromwell Cottage. At that moment, several of the seniors had come up to me and said they had never been to the president's home. So one of the things we've been doing this spring is hosting a series of senior dinners. We started in President's Day in February, and we had the very last one this Monday night. If you'll know that this is a group of students. That's me with a 0.5 Instagram photo. It's my children were very impressed with that shot. But you know that this is a class that started in the fall of 2020 and they have built an amazing community, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity for my husband and I to have them for dinner and to share and hear from them so many of their special moments, despite their very challenging beginning that they had. I will say, and it won't surprise any of you, that what I've heard over and over again, despite a bumpy start, is the many important relationships they have formed with each other and with our faculty here. So it's been a wonderful time. We've had dinner with over 200 of them. In March, just to keep moving on, the women's swimming and diving team continued one of Kenyon's best traditions by winning the NCAA championship, beating out Denison. I had the wonderful opportunity to go to the NCAC conference championships, which was thrilling and exciting. And I learned a lot about how swimming works. I still don't know that I know how to count all the points, but it was very exciting. And you can see that the women won the national championships and the men came in second place. And you'll see senior diver right here on one of the photos, Israel Zavaleta, who became the first diver in NCAA history, Division III history, to win 3 consecutive 3-meter diving titles. He was also voted the NCAA Division III Diver of the Year, which is pretty incredible. We celebrated them on the steps of Ross Hall in April, having a little parade for them when they returned. And I was able to really thank the coaching staff and both of the teams for their incredible humility, compassion, respect, and integrity, and really for preserving our championship's legacy here. And then I'll stick with athletics for just another moment, because just this past weekend, the men's golf team won the North Coast Athletic Conference Championship for the second time in the last 3 seasons, and they will head to the NCAA Division III Championship in Nevada next week. So very exciting. Off campus, I've had the opportunity to travel and meet alumni and parents on a bicentennial tour that included interdisciplinary conversations with several of our professors. In February, we stopped in San Francisco. In Chicago, economics professor Jay Corrigan and Leah Dickens from psychology discussed their fields, and we had wonderful alumni attend these events. What's been wonderful for me is to see the range of ages that attend these events. We've had alumni coming from the early 70s all the way till last year's class of 2023. So we've done these, as I mentioned, in Chicago. We also went to Washington, D.C., and you can see here Professor Siobhan Fennessy and Matthew Suezo from English discussing their work on wetlands. They've been really interesting opportunities, and I think a wonderful reminder for all of our alumni of the interdisciplinary intellectual conversations that our faculty are engaged in all the time. Keep your eyes out. We will do more of these fall events in New York, Boston, Cleveland, and Columbus in the fall. So we hope you will try and join us if you are in the area. Switching gears, again, catching us up to April was Spirit Week leading up to the inauguration. And we had around the country, we had amazing volunteers who worked with our alumni office to arrange happy hours and trivia events to celebrate the bicentennial Spirit Week. You can see from these photos that these lively events were a great way for Kenyon people to get together. I want to really thank all of the volunteers who helped make these fun regional events happen. And you can see the many cities here where people got together and had a wonderful time. I think, well, all the way through to New York City, Washington, and there you go. Thank you to our volunteers. And these were the hosts of many of those events. On campus, we kicked off our Spirit Week here with an eclipse viewing at the Brown Family Environmental Center. That's me with my glasses on. And it was very nice of the solar system to align and the universe to align. It was a wonderful kickoff to both Spirit Week and to the inauguration activities. This is us up near the observatory. You can see the students with their glasses on. It was a really special event. Another highlight of the week was our day of service, which borrowed from the DNA of many of you may remember Middle Path Days, where students, faculty, and staff volunteered to landscape at Wigan Street Elementary, and also sponsored by the Generosity Project, they built playhouses for Habitat for Humanity, and then those playhouses were delivered to families in Knox County. And that was wonderful also. The other thing that I will mention before we move into inauguration was we also had an Honors Day celebration. As you know, each year this ceremony highlights excellence in teaching and outstanding student accomplishments and more. And this year we also presented honorary degrees to Josh Radner of the class of 1996, a veteran of Broadway film and television you may recognize, as well as Stephen Fishman of the class of 1963, a lawyer and a real estate developer, philanthropist, and a former trustee. Colleen, I'm going to throw it back to you, I think.
Terrific. Thank you, Julie. And we'll come back, of course, to the inauguration, but that was quite a week and quite a quick and nice summary of the semester. To our audience, some of those photos may have looked familiar if you're already following some of our social media accounts. But if not, I'll make a plug here. You can follow Julie on Instagram at Prez Kornfeld. And also we have a special account for alumni that's at Kenyon Alumni. So look for those on Instagram. Before we move to inauguration and to Jeff and to Celestino, you mentioned the remarkable legacy of swimming and diving. And last September, a committee of swim and dive alumni helped organize an extraordinary reunion that included the induction of Coachman Jim Steen into the Athletic Hall of Fame. To share our gratitude for the group and their efforts, I'd like to invite Kimberly to join us to present a resolution of appreciation from Alumni Council. Kimberly?
Thank you so much, Colleen. I am pleased to share the following resolution. Whereas the Kenyon College Alumni Council recognizes the exceptional efforts and dedication of the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee, whereas the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee, comprised of esteemed alumni, has worked tirelessly towards the advancement and celebration of the Kenyon College Swim and Dive community, whereas the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee, through their vision and commitment, has brought together alumni across generations to honor the legacy and excellence of the Kenyon Swim and Dive program, whereas the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee has demonstrated unwavering passion and enthusiasm in organizing memorable reunions, fostering lifelong connections, and preserving the rich history of Kenyon College athletics. Whereas the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee has gone above and beyond to create the James A. Steen Pursuit of Excellence Endowment Fund, ensuring the continued support and enhancement of the Kenyon College swim and dive experience for current and future generations. Be it resolved that the Kenyon College Alumni Council expresses its deepest gratitude and appreciation to the members of the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee for their outstanding contributions. Let it be known that the Kenyon College Alumni Council extends its deepest gratitude and commendation to each member of the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee for their unwavering commitment to the Kenyon College community. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Kimberly. I will add the thanks from the Advancement Division as well. This effort was truly a model of the ways in which lifelong bonds are formed at Kenyon and continued by alumni. Julie, I know that you've been getting a sense of this as you continue to meet alumni. You shared some of your impressions in your inauguration speech about how these alumni interactions affirm the vital need for the kind of education found at Kenyon today. So let's take a minute or two to show the video from that weekend. Bear with us. We're going to play the inauguration video if we can get it to play.
Does this mean I have to read the speech all over again? Oh, good.
Here we go.
Kornfeld. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'm delighted to welcome you to Gambier today for the inauguration of Kenyon College's 20th President, Julie Kornfeld.
Stepping into a presidency is an awesome responsibility at any time, but it feels especially daunting at this moment. It is no wonder that people have been asking me, why on earth would you want to be a college president now? To this question, my answer is unequivocal. This work has never been more important. Full stop. This world has never been in greater need of people with the intellectual courage and capacity to lean in and hear one another, to be open to new ideas, and to be ready to work towards solutions. We need to push for more, for Kenyon and from Kenyon. This moment demands that we show up for one another, and it demands that Kenyon show up for the world. My promise to you is that I will show up with my optimism as Kenyon's 20th president, knowing that I do not do this work alone. To all of us who believe in the power of higher education to transform lives and improve the world, keep showing up.
As you could see, the entire weekend was such fun for the whole community, and we should definitely do more 80s dance parties. You also caught a glimpse of the light show on Old Kenyon in that video, which is a presidential inauguration tradition that you can also look forward to seeing at our special bicentennial reunion. For anyone that would like to see Julie's full speech, it is available on the Kenyon website. So Julie, let me hand it back to you.
Thank you, Colleen. And it's always fun to see the video and relive the truly wonderful celebration. And I just want to share that it was a wonderful inauguration because it was shared by and celebrated by this whole community. It was especially moving for me to share it with so many who came to the ceremony. We had students and staff and faculty, my own family, and many dear friends. So it was a really wonderful community moment. I have had students ask me for more 80s dance parties, so we'll have to see what we do about that. But my speech really focused, I think, on the challenging moment we are experiencing in higher education. There are a lot of headwinds that are causing many to question the value of higher education. And I spoke about, as you heard, my belief in the importance of a liberal arts education in training the leaders that we need in the world right now, those who can gather and synthesize complicated information, consider it critically, those who are trained to examine an issue from all sides, seek out different views, understand context. And I talked about the fact that a Kenyon education, which I think all of you know very well, contains the DNA to create the leaders who show up in important ways in the moment when we need it the most. And I talked about the fact that when I meet alumni, I hear a very common refrain, and that is that Kenyon prepared them so well for their next chapter in their lives. I hear it from students who are in graduate school or law school that they were ready for the rigor of the work, more ready in many cases than many of their peers. I hear it from alumni who speak about their ability to communicate effectively, to think critically, to reach across the aisle, whether they work on Capitol Hill or at a global non-governmental organization or in finance. And I hear it from alumni who, when making a hire, seek Kenyon graduates because they know they will show up ready for whatever might come their way. So this is a moment, I think, to lean into the value of higher education and, importantly, the value of a Kenyon education. I think times of societal upheaval are also times of opportunity to consider what higher education and specifically what Kenyon is here for. I have really to turn to the moments that we're facing. I've been so proud of how Kenyon has managed in this complex moment, and we have certainly been tested since October 7th. We have come together as a community in intentional ways through campus forums, through our Center for American Democracy, bringing in speakers, talking about the complexity of the region. We've done that in the fall, since in early October, November, and December, and through the spring, those have continued. I know that all of us have seen a lot of disruption on campuses and have questions about what it looks like here at Kenyon now. And I will say that what you're seeing on the news is not what's happening here in Gambier. We have had some rallies. We have had a few protests that have taken place. The organizers have taken extraordinary efforts to ensure no disruption of campus activities. At no point did we have classes interrupted. And people were able to carry on with their normal activities, go to the library, study, spread their blankets across the lawn. It's beautiful and spring here. And I'm very proud and pleased that things have been as civil and peaceful as they have been here. I think it speaks to the value of community, the amount of respect that our community has for one another, and a commitment to civil discourse. We did have a rally last Wednesday. Again, it was peaceful. I will tell you that we are doing it well. We are not doing it perfectly. There were some chants and some language used in last Wednesday's rally that some in our community, particularly our Jewish community and students, found to be offensive. And we are dealing with talking to those students. Some of them have contacted me. I've been meeting with them. We've been gathering them at Halal, our Office of Civil Rights, etc. So I don't want to imply that things have gone perfectly here. It is a challenging moment, and it is incredibly difficult to walk the line between supporting the right of protest and free speech, which we support, and also the fact that we don't want any member of our community to feel threatened or to feel targeted at any time. And that is trying to balance that all the time. It's not acceptable for anybody here. to feel like they don't belong, that they are not a member of this community. And when we see that kind of behavior, we are dealing with that. But I do want you to know, it is a challenging moment. We believe strongly that colleges are places for learning and for being in uncomfortable conversations and having dialogues that challenge our beliefs. That's what college campuses do. And I think that's my role here as president, to ensure that we provide those opportunities for civil discourse, for free speech, but we do it in a way that adheres to our community standards. So I want to share all of that with you. I know this is a difficult moment. It is difficult to see what is happening on many colleges' campuses, but things are well here in Gambier, and I think we continue to be a really wonderful and a community that engages in these kind of conversations in productive ways. Not perfect, and we have more work to do, and we will continue to do that work. I want to also address, because we had some questions come in specifically about Kenyon's endowment and what investments we may have. I'll just say a few words on that. I think as a mission-driven institution, Kenyon seeks to ensure that our material investments or in our endowment are doing two things. One, that it's aligned with our values as an institution, and also it aligns with our fiduciary responsibility to secure the college's financial foundations, not just for now, but for generations to come. And these goals, I don't believe, are incompatible, but how we achieve them must be carefully considered. Like many institutions, Kenyon does not make individual decisions or investment decisions about individual stocks or companies. We work with an outside investment advisor, Cornerstone Partners. They pick who picks our investments to align with our goals, both our fiduciary goals as well as our mission and our values. And we hold Cornerstone accountable for achieving our investment objectives and for making investments that are consistent with our values. When we find instances of inconsistency with respect to the latter, we work with Cornerstone to reduce and ultimately eliminate any meaningful exposure to businesses or funds that are not aligned with our values. This has happened in the past and continues to happen when we have made these decisions with respect to investments in companies that are focused on fossil fuels, as an example. We've gotten questions about Elbit Systems. Kenyon currently does not have any direct or material investments in Elbit. However, Kenyon is passively invested in a range of public equity funds, one of which currently includes Elbit. While it is not zero, our investment is effectively zero, a fraction of 1% of our almost $600 million endowment. So what I will say here on this topic is, like with many things as a new president, I am taking time to understand Kenyon's processes and procedures for evaluating our investments. I have asked the investment committee of the Board of Trustees to review our policies and practices and to share a set of clear guidelines for socially responsible and fiduciary responsible investing, including considering the appropriate role of community input. And when I have those approved guidelines, we will share them with the community and we will post them on our website. So I think, Colleen, that's what I have to say on those two topics. I hope that gives you a sense of what's happening here in Gambier and how we are navigating these complicated times.
Thank you, Julie. I'll just add, what may not be obvious is that gifts to the Kenyon Fund, which many of you will be seeing requests for as we approach the end of our fiscal year, are separate from the endowment. So we appreciate the opportunity to just describe and explain that. If you have other questions this evening, just a reminder, please use the questions in the chat where a member of our staff is compiling them. So as I mentioned at the outset, we're fortunate to be also joined this evening by Provost Jeff Bowman tonight, who officially retired from the job of acting president last year. Jeff, what can you tell us about this semester from a faculty perspective?
Thank you, Colleen. I will say, just on behalf of the Guild of Provosts everywhere, that it's not typically considered a retirement job, but I appreciate that. So we're coming up on the end of the semester. We have about just 2 more days. They're in the middle of finals, so we're at a moment of very intense work. But as you all know, who are familiar with the kind of rhythms of the campus, it's also a kind of time of celebration and recognition for people who've done a lot of great work over the past year, but also over the entire 4 years that they've been here. We've already mentioned Honors Day, where we recognized some great alumni and community members, Josh Radner, Karen Wright, and Steve Fishman. And it's great to see on the screen a couple of other people who've been honored with degrees at the same ceremony in the past. That's a wonderful ceremony where all kinds of students are recognized for their particular accomplishments in different fields. We also were able to recognize students who had achieved national and international honors with things like 2 different Goldwater Scholars this year, and continued recognition for one of the many years that we've had this about top Fulbright producers. So there's a lot to celebrate there. At that same event, we also recognized the 2 winners of the Trustees Teaching Excellence Award, 2 faculty members, Maggie Stevenson in psychology, who is an expert in criminal justice and juries, and she's marvelous at inspiring her students to think basically about what justice means and how juries work and their place in a civil society. And Adele Davidson, who's also an alumna of the college and a longtime member of the English faculty, who was recognized for her unmatched poise and grace in the classroom, and well as her scholarly accomplishments. So there's a lot of great opportunities to recognize students and faculty. And I would mention that there was a moment a couple of years ago in COVID where there was a lot of concern basically about how the pandemic would disrupt faculty research agenda. And I'm happy to say that they seem to be firing on all cylinders. And I will mention just a couple of examples of this to give you the sense of the recognition that our faculty are receiving, not just on campus, but by organizations in the wider world. Tom Giblin in physics and Jones Lanzewski in biology have both received additional funding from multi-year grants from the National Science Foundation. Hillary Buxton in history won support from both the ACLS, the American Council of Learned Societies, and the Huntington Library in San Marino, California, for her work. She's actually one of 3 different people at Kenyon in art history and in history who have received Huntington fellowships, which are very prestigious. Rob Franco in history also received an ACLS fellowship, and Natalie Wright received an NSF career grant, which is a remarkable accomplishment. So I could kind of go on and on about this, but our faculty are really accomplishing a great deal of work in terms of their scholarship. A lot of them involve students in this scholarly work, and students are oftentimes credited as co-authors on their publications. And so that has been a very exciting thing to see, all of that energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I know one of my favorite things about Honors Day is seeing the joy not only on the faces of the students and the faculty who are receiving awards, but on their friends and their colleagues who are equally proud of them. So it's great to see. Jeff, let me stay with you because we received a question from Jim Keys, class of 1963, who wonders, how do current students learn about and discuss current events, American or the world, with a particular interest in American issues given the upcoming election? So beyond simply describing the course catalog from American Studies or poli-sci, can you give us a sense of how topical events and politics are woven throughout the curriculum?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to say a few things about that. I mean, of course, there are doubtless many veterans on the screen of Quest for Justice who will know that our political science department has a very well-deserved reputation for political philosophy and political theory. That doesn't mean they do other kinds of politics. And in fact, the newest tenure track member of the faculty who just joined us this year is somebody named Zach McGee, who's an expert on American politics, Congress, and political parties and public policy. And his courses in the coming year include things like campaigns and election and public policy. And of course, there are other, now I'm maybe defying your question, Colleen, because you told me not to talk the course catalog, but the course catalog is kind of relevant. Like, you will also know, many of you will know Pam Camara-Rowe. She's teaching a course on democracy and crisis, and you could find lots of other courses on related topics in law and society and American studies, in history and in sociology. And the one other place that I will mention, particularly this year, but always, that has really been like a vital place of programming and of faculty and community coming together, is the Center for the Study of American Democracy, which has organized a lot of programming ranging from very, very local things. They organized a debate among the 4 different candidates for Knox County Sheriff to very, very global things. So let me just say a few things about some of the speakers they've brought to campus this year. And these speakers, the talks have been, it's been marvelous to see the attendance at these presentations, really, because there's been a lot of student and more broadly community interest in it. Maureen O'Connor, who was the retired Supreme Justice of the Supreme Court Justice in Ohio, gave a talk basically on gerrymandering and Ohio state law. Amos Guara, who's a law professor at the University of Utah and a Kenyon alumnus, gave a talk entitled Fighting to Preserve the Rule of Law in Israel Today. Stephen Kotkin at Stanford and who's also a Kenyon parent, gave a talk on Ukraine, Hope and Tragedy. Colin Woodward gave a marvelous talk about the 11 rival regional cultures of North America. Jennifer Brick Mercivili at the University of Pittsburgh came and talked about property rights and the rise of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Adam Singer, who is an alumnus, brought together 2 other people, Abna Jamal and Michael Greenfield, in a conversation with Palestinian and Israeli peace activists on the future of the Middle East. We had a conversation by a biographer of F.A. Hayek. So we've had a lot of talks, and then the one other part of this that I'll mention is that we also have a relatively new program, which is a colloquium that convenes each semester, sponsored by John Adams, where we invite people to participate in a common read. We did 2 of these this year. One of them was Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperfield, which is a retelling of Charles Dickens's David Copperfield, set in contemporary Appalachia, and it fed lively conversations about rural poverty and the opioid crisis and literary adaptations, because we're a place that really deeply cares about how people tell stories. And in the spring, David Leonhardt of the New York Times came for a discussion of Ours Was a Shining Future, the Story of American Democracy. And he gave a public lecture, but then he also participated in small group conversations. So that's the other place I would point to this, is the Center for the Study of American Democracy, which also involves students in the programming. There are CSAD interns who work on not just the programming elements, but they've also organized voter guides for their fellow students, but for also anyone who is interested in them. So, and Jim, this is a great question. I really appreciate it, because educating knowledgeable and engaged citizens is, of course, one of the fundamental goals of liberal education. And so we're trying to do it in all the different ways that we can. So thank you.
Well, and thank you, Jeff, for that very wide-ranging examples of what a thriving intellectual community we have here on the Hill. I'll point out to our guests online that the CSAD programming that Jeff refers to and that will continue in the fall is open to alumni. So keep an eye out for that programming that will continue in the fall. Let's turn to Celestino now. Celestino, we'd love to hear from your perspective about the student experience over the course of the last semester.
Yeah, mahalo for that, Colleen. Great to see everyone this evening. It's such a special time of year with all the student activities, sort of a buzz, but also I think the firm realization that everyone is prepared for this moment as they go into their exams, papers, and projects. I just wanted to highlight a few things that are sort of points of pride for us as we end this spring semester. The first is that we have a great new colleague who's going to be joining us 1 July in a critical role here at the college. Her name is Dr. Alice Teal, and she joins us as our new Senior Director of Wellness, effective 1 July. Alice joins us from Ohio State, where she's currently finishing a role as Associate Clinical Professor and Director of Graduate Health and Wellness Academic Programming. Really, I think we were so fortunate to have her be part of a national search that saw great applicants from all over the country want to be a part of Kenyon's momentum we have going. But what's unique about Alice is not only I think is she poised to meet this moment and be our really sort of campus voice when it comes to wellness, but she has over 3 decades of experience, both as a clinician, but then also as an academic. She has taught many courses, and she has applied for and led and acquired many research grants, and also is very well published in relation to elements around wellness, health promotion, and also clinical services. So we are very excited to have her join us, and we had a very much so, I think, a strong response to people around the country wanting to be a part of what Kenyon is doing with our strategic plan for our next 3rd century. So we're very excited to welcome Dr. Teal here very soon for us. The second thing I'll point to, Colleen, there's something really exciting that we've been sort of planning for a while now, but I wanted to make sure I recommend this to all of our folks to be aware of. So I remember Sean Decatur and I, my first year, when we were sitting and talking one day, we really took inspiration from the Kenyon Access Initiative because financial justice is something that, of course, really led to that moment. And he and I were opining one day about the fact that we have a great palette that's already been set when it comes to addressing those elements of financial justice. We have one rate for tuition here. Many institutions nationally practice differential tuition. And what this can mean is it can relegate low-income students into majors that they can afford rather than ones that they are actually drawn to. Because of course it costs more to educate someone in maybe a STEM major than someone in the humanities. And of course, this is something that can be detrimental towards students' academic growth, but we don't do that here. In addition, we also have one rate when it comes to our board plan. All of you, of course, have fond memories of Pierce, and we are proud that there is no differential pricing there. So in many schools, you will have an 18-meal-a-week plan, a 12-meal-a-week plan, 15, and this can sort of put boundaries around students, and it can create sort of this element about food insecurity. We don't have that here at Kenyon. Students go to Pierce until their bellies are full, and they come and go as they please, because we want to make sure that we take that out of the equation of their experience. So Sean and I started thinking about what about the housing process? Because historically, we've had 6 housing rates here on campus, 3 different apartment rates and 3 different residence hall rates, with the delta between all of those, the most expensive and the least expensive, being $4,000. So if you are a student from modest financial means, this can actually take away options, particularly when you are a junior and senior, about where you can live based on what your family can afford. So Vice President Burson, James Jackson, our Senior Director of Campus Life, and I spent about 9 months researching a way that we can get this done that was going to be budget neutral and actually can give students options. So we are really proud, and we were announcing to the campus last year this new plan where we are going to be moving towards one rate for housing as well. So starting this fall of 2024, it's part of a 2-year transition where we're going from 6 housing rates, Colleen, to just 3. And so the delta shrinks from $4,000 to $2,000. And then in fall of 26, we will have one rate. Now, the reason why we're not transitioning immediately is because our friends at Financial Aid have done a masterful job helping us out with this, because we wanted to make certain no student was financially harmed in this process. So they needed a bit of runway to make certain that financial aid packages could be augmented with not loans, but grants. And I really have to give mahalo to Vice President Diane Nancy and Director Craig Slaughter for helping us out with this. So the long runway of 2 years helps us transition for that, but it also allows us to add additional apartment and suite style beds. So of course we have 2 towers coming online of South Campus here in January and July of 2025. And what this allows us to do, Colleen, is if you are a parent and you are paying the same rate for Old K, Hannah, and you are looking at maybe the NCAs or the new residence halls thinking, I'm not sure that I'm getting the same, value for my experience, we can now say in good faith, it will all even out, because in the coming 2 years, about half of our beds are going to be suite or apartment style. And I think our community has really greeted this movement, I think, in really strong ways, because it's one more way the Kenyon experience can now be free of economic barriers. And it's one more way we're living our mission and our strategic plan. Now, of course, the other things that I think are really exciting when you think about sort of the elements about the way in which that we had things come online. Bexley Hall is a new residence hall that came online January of 24, but many people don't realize that Colburn Social Hall also came online as well. So it is directly behind Bexley, and it is a vibrant social space. Think of a space that is going to be much larger than Weaver, but is also going to be so much more opulent than that space. In addition, Colburn Hall has been busy every single week with student groups, student events, and it has that gorgeous green space that completely surrounds it. So being able to do indoor-outdoor events in a space that actually has a topography that actually can accommodate that. You may remember Weaver Cottage has a bit of a challenge given the slope, but we don't have that issue with Colburn at all. So Colburn has been a fantastic addition to the campus. And the last thing, Colleen, I want to talk about is summer send-offs. So Annie, if you can cue up those slides, that would be great. This is something that, of course, is a long-standing Kenyon tradition. And this year was really, I think, a huge, huge boost for us. Last year, we had a bit of an issue with the weather. It didn't quite cooperate with us, but this year it was beautiful. And it was something fantastic for our students to experience on that Friday. This is, I think, a way in which for our students to really celebrate the relationships they have with each other. But more importantly, it really is a way for students to connect and remind themselves All the work they've put in is about to come to a head, and they are ready for this moment. So this is a chance for them to truly celebrate with each other. And we were so excited to see that, Colleen.
Thank you, Celestino. I'm guessing that our guest online who graduated from 1980 and beyond may remember fondly Summer Send-Off, which ran the gamut from the Red Hot Chili Peppers to Mo. I don't know the more recent bands. Anyway, a concert t-shirt with each year's performers will be available soon in the bookstore, so watch for that. It's now my pleasure to bring back Kimberly. Each year, our office requests nominations from alumni for those classmates you feel are deserving of special recognition with alumni awards, some of which Kimberly will now present.
We are so excited to be presenting 3 awards with 7 outstanding recipients tonight. So we will begin with the Ann Robinson Award for the Outstanding Regional Alumni Association President. The winner is Katie Goldman of the class of 2016. In Austin, Katie helped create a regional association and planned and organized many creative alumni events, including studio tours, a soccer game, and concert outings, brewery get-togethers, and even a unique version of bingo. Now in Boston, Katie has already helped to plan an alumni Boston Red Sox outing. Congratulations, Katie. Next, we've got the Kenyon to Career Ambassador Award, which is given in recognition of the individual who has significantly contributed to the professional development, career exploration, and postgraduate success of Kenyon students and alumni. This year's winner is Lorraine Bush Schrader of the class of 1997. Lorraine is the Kenyon College Job Shadow Program's most dedicated champion and has been one of its most prolific hosts over her career. In 2007, Lorraine gave generously to establish a fund designed to offset job shadowing expenses for students with need-based aid, which supports 5 to 10 students each year. Lorraine shares her expertise willingly, even returning to campus regularly to meet with students. Thank you, Lorraine. Next, we have Distinguished Service Awards, which are presented to those alumni who, in the opinion of Alumni Council, have made significant volunteer contributions to Kenyon. Our first winner tonight is Alan Ballard, the class of 1952. Alan is one of the first 2 Black graduates of Kenyon College. He is a former member of the Board of Trustees, Alumni Council, has served on multiple reunion committees, and was recognized by the college with an honorary degree in 2004. The Alan B. Ballard Prize was established last year and is awarded to a Kenyon student in recognition of an outstanding scholarly project that promotes understanding of the history, cultures, and peoples of the African diaspora by focusing on issues pertaining to social justice. Congratulations, Alan. Next, we have Brian Dowdle, class of 93, who has served as a class agent on reunion planning committees, as a phone-a-thon caller and regional association representative. But Brian was nominated for this award by the Swim and Dive Reunion Committee for his commitment to that reunion weekend. In particular, his fundraising efforts to endow the James A. Steen Pursuit of Excellence Endowment Fund to support the swimming and diving teams. Congratulations, Brian. Our third awardee for Distinguished Service is Chris Eaton, class of 1989, who is a former Alumni Council member, class agent, and phone-a-thon caller, now serving on his reunion committee as a regional association volunteer and on the Our Path Forward campaign committee. He was also appointed in April to join the Kenyon Board of Trustees. Thank you for your service, Chris. And our final Distinguished Service Award goes to Rose Faley, class of 1984. Rose is one of the tri-chairs for the campaign, who has also volunteered with Kenyon Women Giving Back and the Kenyon Fund Executive Committee. She is currently a member of the Board of Trustees as well. Thank you so much to each of you for all you do for Kenyon, and congratulations.
And thank you, Kimberly, and thanks for being here on behalf of Alumni Council to recognize each of these outstanding alums. One last bit of news before we get to your questions in the chat. We have an important safety update to State Route 229 that's being managed by the Ohio Department of Transportation. So any of you who have ever tried to walk down the hill and cross over to the BFAC know that that intersection can be particularly tricky and dangerous to cross. ODOT has decided to install a roundabout, the work of which will begin right after reunion weekend. This work follows a safety study after a fatal collision in December of 2020 that killed a 21-year-old Gambier resident and injured 3 others. A total of 25 accidents have taken place at that intersection since 2013. So construction by the Ohio Department of Education, or the Ohio Department of Transportation project, will start after reunion weekend. It will conclude at the fall, and it will be no cost to Kenyon. So you won't notice anything if you're coming for reunion, but your next visit back to campus after that, you will approach the hill in a different way. So let's now get to your questions. We see and appreciate your follow-up questions. There are several around divestment. Julie did cover those, so we'll be devoting most of our time to other questions that have come in. 2 that are similar that I'd like to direct to you, Celestino, are from both Jada and from Sam, asking what resources does Kenyon have for Palestinian students and other students whose families are directly affected by the conflict in Gaza? Celestino?
Yeah, mahalo for that. This one I think is a very important question for so many of us here on the Hill, for obviously the reasons that are at hand, but I think more importantly, it gives us a chance to make sure that all of you as alums are very familiar with our Student Success Fund. So let me talk about that first. So we have a long-established fund that our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion shepherd that helps students that are dealing with situations that they didn't necessarily plan for, that are needing some help with, whether it's you've got a sick family member you need to attend to, or you've got a situation yourself that is going to require some additional funds. This is something that would be in addition to the financial aid process, but Chris Kennerly, our Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, has done a masterful job shepherding this for a number of years. So that would be one option for students to take advantage of. Now, in terms of support, we of course have different things on campus that we do, whether it's our chaplains that are going to be helping out. But in addition, President Kornfeld actually, I think, did a number of things when she first arrived. One of them is that for a few years now, there's been an attempt to actually add an additional position on campus as a Muslim coordinator for spiritual life here for our students that are identify as Muslim and want to make sure that they have resources. We have a Protestant chaplain, we have a Jewish chaplain, and both of them do a fantastic job being a resource for everyone here on campus. But identity is very important. And so we've now posted again that position. So we're very hopeful that students can have a resource there here very soon. In addition to that, I think there are going to be ways in which that individuals are going to be navigating issues here on campus and then once back home. So our CGE office stands ready to help any student that needs to be repatriated or also help with things that their families are experiencing. Maureen Osek does a fantastic job with that. So of course, we've been making sure that we're very clear with students that need to take advantage of those resources they can. But of course, there are going to be things that may be occurring here on campus and stateside that are going to be things that they need support with. And so our Office of Civil Rights and Title IX, Samantha Hughes and Kevin Peterson, have done a masterful job of making that sort of available to all students, but primarily students that identify as Palestinian and have different needs that they need to take care of. We want to make sure we have those resources available day and night to those students.
Thank you, Celestino. Julie, our next question is for you. It comes from Amelia, who just graduated last year. She wants to know if you truly see college campuses as apolitical. Is that an ideal or a reality?
No, I don't actually think that college campuses are apolitical in the sense that I think our students engage in political conversation, debate, protests, rallies, discussions all the time. I think Provost Bowman reeled off a long list of opportunities for students to learn about the political process. We have debates here on campus. I don't necessarily see campus as an apolitical place. I think we support all of those kinds of opportunities for our students. I think I had an interview in the Collegian, which I talked a little. I mentioned the politicalization of campuses. What I meant in that conversation was I think some of the fear that many of us have in higher education as leaders of institutes of higher education, of politics coming in and trying to influence campuses in terms of book bannings, in terms of curricular interventions. And so that was not, my comment was not at all about that I think campuses should be apolitical. It was much more about, I hope that the political views of different parties, different views are not influencing. I think institutes of higher education take great pride in setting their academic curricular, opportunities to reflect the intellectual and scholarly vision of the college. And so I think that's what I was referring to, if that's perhaps a misinterpretation of that particular comment in the collegian. So certainly so I think that's what I mean. I don't think, I will say one other comment to that is I don't see myself as president being having to state my political views. I don't believe that's my role as a president. I think my role is to ensure that the campus has opportunities for debate and discussion, but it's not one where I think I'm entitled to express my political views.
Thank you, Julie, for that clarification. I have a comment in the chat that's not a question, but an important comment to share from Jesse, who says, I remember Kent State in 1970, and Kenyon responded in an appropriate way. Sounds like 54 years, and Kenyon is still the same, the Magic Mountain. So thank you, Jesse, for that. Diane, let me turn to you. We've got a question about this year's class. So how is enrollment shaping up so far? I know people often are tuned in to the May 1st deadline, but we know May 1st this year is not quite the same, and you can explain why.
Well, this has been an interesting year for higher education broadly. Clearly, everything that President Kornfeld has just discussed with regard to the protests have been cause for multiple daily headlines. So too has the disruption caused by the FAFSA Simplification Act. So perhaps many of you have read about the federal government's attempt to simplify the free application for federal student aid, a form that is typically available to families in the fall. This year, the joke among people in, I'm going to use Jeff's word, in my guild, was that the form arrived somewhere on December 32nd, 2023, much later than usual. And there has been significant delay in terms of significant complication for families submitting the free application for federal student aid, and then significant delays getting the form to college campuses. To be honest, once we started to get some of our FAFSA forms in mid-April, most of them were actually wrong, and we're still waiting for corrected forms to come in. So what does this mean? This is kind of devastating. Students and families cannot make choices about where to enroll because they don't have the full picture of financial aid awards from all the institutions to which they've applied. So many institutions, Kenyon included, have issued an extension to the May 1 general reply date. So our general reply date now will be sometime later in the month of May, in order to give students and their families a bit more time to actually get financial aid awards from all the institutions to which they've applied so that they can make an informed decision. So I will say my colleague Celestino generously, kindly recognized my colleague Craig Slaughter, our director of financial aid, who is not a guy prone to hyperbole or exaggeration. And he has described the last couple of years as, you know, where we've had multiple once in a lifetime events, sort of one right after the other. And certainly this situation with the FAFSA would be considered one of them. So the class of 2028 is rolling in slowly but surely. And its characteristics so far are, you know, very much in line with previous Kenyon classes in terms of its academic profile and its demographic reach. So I'm grateful. I see many of you in the room. I've been clicking through to see you throughout the course of this this wonderful town hall. And I am grateful to the many of you who do represent Kenyon so very well for us and who nurture the interest in Kenyon among talented prospective students. And for that, my colleagues and I are always very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And you are such a regular on our events that I failed to properly introduce you. As is probably obvious to our guest, Diane Ansey is our Vice President for Enrollment and is very capable and talented, and we are fortunate to have her leadership. So thank you, Diane. We're reaching the end of our hour, and Julie, I would like to turn it back to you for final comments that you'd like to add.
Oh, thank you, Colleen. I just want to reiterate my thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. It is such a wonderful joy to continue to meet alumni all around the country at these bicentennial events and to see the wonderful commitment you have to Kenyon College. So thank you for tuning in, for hearing about all of our updates. This is a beautiful time here in May, and I'm looking out my window and students are cramming in every possible space that they can to study. They're on the lawn, they're walking to the library. We're really looking forward to commencement. For those of our seniors who did not have a high school graduation, this is an extra special commencement ceremony. We have, as Colleen said, the year is not done until we have a record number of alumni coming for reunion. So I look forward to seeing many of you on reunion weekend or around the country at our reunion events. So thank you again for joining us. Always wonderful to see you all.
Thank you again, and allow me to add my thanks to Julie, to Jeff, to Celestino, to Kimberly, and my, again, congratulations to our award winners. Please keep an eye out for our bicentennial tour stops, hopefully coming near you, and more virtual events with our faculty. Appreciate you joining us this evening, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.